You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Park Ranger with Locked On Coogs here, and I mentioned that individual battles, while it is a gigantic team sport, one of the things I love about football is like the best individual player does not win very often. And frankly, the best individual offense does not always win. The best individual defense does not always win. The best kicker, the best quarterback, it takes everyone. That being said, individual matchups can create margins that create big gaps that can ultimately lead to victory. And it takes everyone else doing their job as well. But these individual matchups I'm keeping an eye on, I think, can really sway things for the Houston Cougars. That is to say that if Houston wins these three matchups, one-on-one kind of situations, when it's time to win those situations, I think they can walk away with victory and not sweat it, but not have to worry about too many things, right? So first, I've talked about him all week. I've been impressed with the guy all season. I just really like this kid in this game. Carlos Allen, defensive tackle for Houston, going up against Van Wells, the center at Oregon State. Now, for my money, there's a lot of it, teacher, coach, podcaster. For my money, I think that Van Wells is their best offensive lineman. Now, could Oregon State be better at the offensive line spots? Absolutely, right? That's not to say that they're like some gargantuan NFL rushing attack kind of thing, but Van Wells, I think, is their best offensive lineman. He's their center, which means that he's going to be involved in blocking Carlos Allen a lot, either one-on-ones or in double teams and stuff like that, right? That's just kind of where Carlos is. And bluntly, if I were scheming against Houston, I would imagine my center is always going to be calling out where 5 is, probably also where Kentrell Webb is, and he's going to be trying to figure those kinds of, where's Latravion McCutcheon, right? You're going to call out where those guys are so you get set up, you know where your blocks go, right? If Carlos Allen can dominate Van Wells the same way he's dominated the interior of as a defensive lineman every week that they played a game so far, I don't know that they can score. And I understand Van Wells is on scholarship, maybe a pro. He's a little undersized, but centers can get away with that. He's very talented. I don't mean to say that Carlos Allen's going to win every rep. That's not necessarily what it takes, though, in this instance. I think that Carlos Allen being visibly and palpably better than Van Wells on Friday night is going to be a big thing for Houston because it's going to shut down that running game and force them into passing situations. And it's going to take up a couple blocks in passing situations and leave other runners open to make shots at the quarterback, right? It's going to do a lot of things that help Houston out. Carlos Allen is kind of bursting on the scene for a lot of folks that maybe don't watch line player, got caught up with Keith Cooper last year or didn't watch Kennesaw or whatever, right? He is so strong and moving so well laterally right now that you really see the impact because he's not just taking up double teams and dominating the inside of things. He's really making the line of scrimmage move side to side and kind of moving the point of attack side to side to where zone plays are not negating the interior like they're supposed to. And double teams certainly aren't moving him off the ball like they're supposed to. So Carlos Allen winning his matchups against Van Wells is going to be really important. Similarly, on the outside, Stephon Boogie Johnson versus Trey Glasper, their outside corner up at Oregon State. Now, I don't know that Boogie's going to have 10 balls thrown his way. If I were game playing this game, frankly, if I were taking a prop bet to FanDuel and they said, what do you want, Parker? I'd put the over-under closer to 6.5, maybe 7.5 as far as targets go for Stephon Boogie Johnson. I think Houston's going to try to establish the run in this game. But that's going to compress the defense. It's going to pull things in. Boogie's a big receiver. He's listed at 6 feet tall, but like a big catch radius, great speed, great feet, great hands. I think that you're going to see Connor go to him. We saw Connor go to him at the end of the Rice game for an explosive play. He then Boogie Johnson the next week led Houston in receptions against Colorado. Right, I feel very confident in looking at this, saying, okay, Connor's going to look for Boogie. It might not be a lot because they want to establish the run and take over the game in that way. But the way that Houston wins this football game is when Houston wants to go to that, when Connor pulls it back to throw it to Boogie Johnson somewhere downfield. If you make them pay for it, you make that explosive happen, you convert on those plays, honestly, it's backbreaking. It means that they can't stop the run. They pull those guys in, go over the top. They can't stop that either. Or it makes them stop packing the line of scrimmage up with their offense, trying to keep guys in the box or whatever, and forces the offense to do certain things. They can't do that anymore. So then you go back to running the football, and that's the chess game that it is. Now, I say Boogie Johnson. I could also see as a receiver, there are probably ways to scheme him out of it. If you're Oregon State, you might see them want to do something like put a guy low and a guy high or bracket or whatever. And that's fine. That to me means it's Kobe Young or it's Amari Thomas or it's someone else that the top target I anticipate as far as the top wideout target, I anticipate that to be Boogie Johnson just because he's been trending in that direction. And frankly, he's talented enough to do it for a good Big 12 football team. And frankly, he's probably got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder after all that stuff that happened in Oklahoma State with Gundy being fired this week. Like that all I think factors into this, man. And I think that's how that would go. But regardless, when Houston takes deep shots, they've got to convert. And I think what you're going to see is they're going to find who is Oregon State going to allow to be that guy. Is it Kobe? Is it Amari? Is it Harvey Broussard? Is it somebody that Houston can really take advantage of? And I think it's going to be Boogie versus Glasper. I just this is not shots to be fired at Trey Glasper or anything like that. Boogie's just different, man. And I think that he's going to show that off some on Friday night. And that's a big deal. All right, my third matchup, a little nuanced here. Connor Wigman versus Jaheim Patterson. Now, as I watch Oregon State's defensive stuff play, Jaheim Patterson is listed as a safety. He's probably their most like hybrid, flexible kind of player they've got on their whole defense. But it looks like to me, part of that, it's not that he's Troy Polamalu, so excuse the high end of the metaphor here, but a lot of the reason he's so flexible so all over the field is it feels like they're trying to scheme things up to where he's in the most probable places for them to put the football, right? That seems like what they're trying to do to me as the outsider that has watched Oregon State for a week now. I imagine if Connor Wigman can take advantage of that, both in seeing where he lines up and figuring out what they're in and doing something to take advantage of it, in making Jaheim Patterson go one way and throw the ball the other. If Connor Wigman breaks out to run the football on a scramble, I'm imagining Jaheim Patterson's probably the guy who's got to make sure he avoids, right? Doing those kinds of, if Wigman can win that matchup as a quarterback, you don't often put a quarterback against a single individual defensive guy. Frankly, if you're a longtime listener, I usually put the quarterback against like the defensive coordinator as the matchup, right? But Patterson throws enough things off as far as who goes where on this defense, or I guess he organizes and orchestrates a lot of the defense that I kind of feel like Weigman just individually winning his one-on-one, so to speak, with that guy could really, really throw things in Houston's favor. You'll notice I didn't mention a single aspect of Houston's run game. I didn't pick an offensive lineman for Houston versus a defensive lineman. I didn't pick a running back versus a linebacker or anything like that. And I think Tanner Kojal is going to win his matchup, whoever they want to put on him. I say all that to say I think that's such a team effort thing this week because it should be a fairly significant focus for the Houston Cougars that I don't think I can put it on like Pancake Hunter winning his matchup or put it on Jason Brooks winning his matchup. Queso is great, and he probably will. I just don't think it's any one of those guys in the same kind of way, right? Houston's going to need to establish a run, and I think they will. But I think it's going to be such a five fingers make a fist kind of effort for Houston that I don't think it's going to be the same kind of one-on-one matchups we're seeing in other spots. Now, if they catch Booger at the top for 2 touchdowns, say goodnight, folks, right? If Connor can make Jaheim Patterson look like a group of 5 player, let it go, folks. Like that's simple. That's cakes, right? But I'm looking at those matchups and like, okay, if Houston wins these 3 things, I feel pretty good about how you're going to wake up on Saturday morning feeling about this game. Speaking of Saturday morning waking up feeling about this game, there are some real things on the line for Houston in this game that I don't, with the excitement about the rest of the season and how great things have started and hoorah and all that, I don't know that people have fully put together what's at stake on Friday night. I want to talk about a couple things that may be on the line as Houston heads up to Corvallis this Friday. But before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by DoorDash because it is almost the weekend. On with the weekend, it's time to look back and crown the MVP of the season so far and who's delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I think the answer's got to be Connor Wigman. Transformed the offense. Not really had an offense for 2 straight years now. Certainly not a passing one. And Connor Wigman shows up and delivers in big, big ways. I think the biggest transformation thing, though, has been he's also a runner when they've just had like an only running quarterback for a couple years now. And Dion did some things well, or Donovan did some things well, but Connor's doing a lot of things well without hesitation, and he's really kind of feeling comfortable and feeling more into the groove every week, and it's very, very visible. And just like Connor Wigman delivers to the Houston Cougars, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays, DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday. You order, stack it all up all season long. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo goes through November 18th.